Damage. It's a mechanic in most games. When your health subtracts, you take damage. Whether you have 3 health or 3,000. In Minecraft, you have 20 health. It is possible that only a fraction of your health gets subtracted, but it may not be enough for one of your hearts to disappear. It still counts as damage. But what if my health never subtracted? What if I stayed at 20 health throughout the entire playthrough? My name is Peaky, and this is how I beat Minecraft damageless. It all started when I finished my last Block Sumo video. I saw a video about beating the game without taking damage, and I wanted to give it a try. I wanted a challenge, and a challenge is what I got. January 21st, 2021. I just started my first few attempts. They usually ended to me carelessly dying in a cave, or to other stupid means. At the time, I hadn't developed the ability to watch where I was going, and was reckless and not careful. I mostly wandered around until I found something good and hardly even made it to the nether. I also lost a lot of worlds due to not being careful about fall damage. I collected my resources mostly in caves and villages. The one problem with this is that caves are very dangerous. At least I didn't have to get armor due to only nullifying damage. January 25th. At the time, I played a little under an hour per day, and I was 4 days in, which means several hours total. At attempt 14, I finally found my first nether fortress. This time, although I was careful, not having a plan wasn't doing any good for me. January 27th, 2 days later. I had something I didn't have before, a strategy. I started to reset my seeds until I found a village. My new plan was to get a bow to make it easier to kill mobs, specifically blazes. How? Through villager trading. I wanted to get a power 5 infinity bow, but this later wasn't viable due to the amount of emeralds and bookshelves needed, so I eventually stopped going for the villager trading strategy. It has been a month and a half since my first attempt. I was still wandering around aimlessly with no plan. My main problem was finding another fortress. No matter how many times I could get to the nether, I could not find one. 120 attempts and only one nether fortress. Out of frustration and disappointment, I decided to try something else. I did some research on some better strategies. Prior to my research, I was using the enchanted bow method, but I learned that it is unnecessary and a waste of time. I then switched to the unenchanted bow strategy. First, you get 64 logs and a bit extra for crafting. 64 logs turn into 8 stacks of sticks. Then you trade your sticks with a fletcher to get 16 emeralds. With the emeralds, you get a bow, 3 stacks of arrows, and a bucket from a fisherman. This is 5 to 10 minutes slower than aimlessly wandering around, but it will pay off. Although it took me 3 months, I finally found one. The difference between now and then is the fact that I had a plan. A blaze will only shoot at you if it can see you. The idea is to use your bow to peek in and out of cover and kill the blazes. Although I had a plan, I didn't have enough experience. I still had a long way to go. Attempt 466. 1 week later, I got the third fortress. This time, what I did have was luck. Although I got out of the fortress, it was by the skin of my teeth, and I didn't get as many blaze rods as I should have. Just blocks away from entering the portal, I was not careful enough. In the spur of the moment, combined with the pressure, I could not succeed. Although I did get a few more fortresses, I died during the blaze fights due to the dysfunctional strategy I was using. As the months passed, I grew more and more discouraged. With no sign of progress, I kept trying. After hours and hours of effort, 4 months and 600 attempts, I hadn't even made it to the end yet, or even past the nether. Each time I died in the nether, I looked to see that the fortress was hundreds of blocks away. Every day, I would become discouraged and quit. Later, I would feel as I was doing nothing to progress. As time went on, it became harder and harder for me to try. Many times, I came close to giving up. I had to try something new. I was stuck with what to do, so I asked a couple of people for help. So I asked both of them if they knew what to do, and neither had much experience in this field of the game. However, Kishbub told me to speedrun for practice. Even though I didn't think I needed any practice, I decided to go with it. At this point, I was willing to do anything. So it was time to speedrun. Now to make it easier for myself, I was running FSG. For those of you who don't speedrun, I'm going to explain a few things. There are multiple categories for speedrunning. The ones I'm going to talk about are FSG, Filtered Seed Glitchless, and RSG, Random Seed Glitchless. The goal of these categories is to beat the game without using glitches as fast as possible. However, the difference between them is that in RSG, you create a world, speedrun it, and reset your world if you get a bad seed. But in FSG, you use a program to sort through seeds. This causes you to reset your seeds much less often. In summary, FSG removes a major luck factor. With that out of the way, it's time to speedrun. This time, it was different. This time, I was really enjoying it. It was fun to learn something new, and there was no point in which I felt like doing something else. The fact that I didn't have to reset my seeds really made it enjoyable. I would play for several hours a day, a lot longer when I was beating Minecraft damageless. I was focused on one thing and one thing only, beating the game as fast as possible. The first few days, I was getting used to bastion routes and getting the ropes to speedrunning. I got to the nether in 10 minutes, a pretty slow pace. I got everything I needed from the village except an iron pickaxe to mine the gold. I got out of the nether in 24 minutes. With an exposed stronghold, and into the end 2 minutes later. All I had to do was a successful 1 cycle. Normally, you would go for 4 to 6 beds, but I had a lot extra, so that was reassuring. In practice, I could normally complete a 5 to 6 bed one cycle, but the pressure made me use all my beds. Just 9 days after I started speedrunning, I reached my goal to get a sub 30. It wasn't difficult, it just seemed too easy. Many of my runs would be on pace to get a sub 30, but would later die in the nether or in the stronghold. I had a lot of wiggle room, perhaps too much. So I asked Shitsubo what to do next. To summarize, he told me to get a time under 20 minutes in 1 week. As I was grinding away, 2 days before my due date, I got this run. I forgot to mention, the top timer is the in-game time, and the bottom timer is just a normal timer. Anyways, back to the run. With the 4-minute nether enter, I was on a good pace. I build up and see a bastion and make my way towards it. As I almost die, I get my gold to trade with the piglins. I exit the bastion at 10 minutes and head to the fortress. Although the blaze spawner is covered by parts of the fortress, I use a bed to blow it up. With mediocre blaze luck, I finished my blaze fight at 15 minutes and blind travel at 16:30. My portal generates directly into the stronghold. With not so good stronghold navigation, I enter the end at 1840. It all came down to this moment. If I got a lucky perch and a successful one cycle, I could complete my goal of getting a sub 20. With the time ticking, the dragon had to perch now. Unfortunately, I barely missed my sub 20. Just 20 seconds away. I couldn't let that stop me. I still had 2 days, so I grinded and tried my best. Harder than I ever done before. As the hours went by, all that was on my mind was speedrunning. It was the last day of my goal, and I had to focus more than ever. That's when this happened. I got to the end at 16 minutes, and it all came down to this one cycle. Due to the pressure, I ran out of beds, and just when I thought it was over, this happened. My hard work finally paid off, and I reached my goal of beating the game in under 20 minutes. I knew what I had to do next. I had to return to beating Minecraft damageless. I decided to take a short 3-day break, and in those 3 days, I could not stop thinking about it. The 3 days passed. In the short time I spent away, I quickly forgot how much of a challenge this really was. Since setting a goal worked for me, I decided to set myself another one. This time, I decided I wanted to beat Minecraft without taking damage in 2 weeks. A week and a half in, 3 days before my deadline, this happened. I finally got out of the nether. The next step was to get ender pearls. I decided to wing it and go with villager trading. What is that noise? Hello? Was that an earthquake? I had never made it past the nether, nor have I got to the end. This was the furthest I've ever gotten. I was still a bit upset that I couldn't do it in that attempt, but I was happy I made it that far. So I decided to evaluate what I did wrong. The dragon's hitbox is like a force field. If you touch it, you die. I was trying not to touch it, but at the same time, I was shifting, so I couldn't reach the dragon. In an attempt to reach it, I touched the hitbox. When you touch the hitbox, there's a good chance something like this will happen. For the last 3 days of my goal, nothing significant happened. Even though I failed to complete my objective, I still had learned plenty of things. For example, in the blaze fight, I was using a strategy where I peeked in and out of cover. There's an easier way to do this. If you make eye contact with the blaze, it will shoot at you. However, if you stand a bit further from the spawner, you can shoot at the blaze's feet and the blocks above you will protect you from making eye contact. In those 2 weeks, I made more progress than ever before. I went to the end, found dozens of fortresses, discovered new strategies, and grinded out attempts as hard as I could. During this 2-week period, I ran over 200 plus attempts. Before, I could barely do 504 months. Setting goals really helped me, so I decided to do it again. But this time, instead of 2 weeks, I set it to 1. The start of the week was the same as the last, uneventful. On July 1st, 3 days before my goal, I got this run. I find a lava pool, which is pretty standard, but then I spawn in another fortress. I get out of the nether when I realize something. I only have 7 blaze rods, meaning that unless a brewing stand spawns in the village, I have to go back into the nether unless I want to risk having only 12 eyes. After all the stress, I finally got out of the nether. And now, all I had to do was get loads of wood and make it to the end. Even though I got to the end for the second time, I still needed more practice. When the dragon finishes its perch, it will charge at you, but it will never change directions. It was the last day of my goal, so I just had to hope. I got out of the nether with all my blaze rods, collected all my pearls from villager trading, and as I was on my way to the end, sick. If I can find an enemy. What am I supposed to do about that? How? I got close, but I wasn't quite there. That's when I realized how difficult this really was. You could be the best player in the game, and there are still things you can't account for. I never ended up completing my goal. I was now stuck again. But I knew there's only one thing I could do. Play. With all the fortresses I was finding, and how many times I went to the end, for the first time, I finally felt close. The thing about this challenge is that there's almost no sense of progress. You could beat it in 100 minutes or 100 days. I was finally getting hopeful, but when I least expected it, I got out of the nether, so I just had to collect my logs and hope. When you're this far into a run, as each second goes by, the more anxious you get. As I break all the crystals, all I need is a few perch cycles to beat the game. I just needed one more dragon perch to beat the game, and my 5 months of work would finally pay off. I would finally beat the game without taking damage. All my hope that I had finally gathered was immediately crushed. The fact that I was so oblivious to how I died really did not sit right with me. I only had to press one button. One button is what was stopping me from reaching my goal that I had been trying to achieve for months. The fact that I didn't know what happened made me so unsure of whether or not this was a good idea. Even though I played extremely well, there are still some things I couldn't account for. 3 days later, I was watching a video when I stumbled across the pie chart. The pie chart is part of the F3 screen and can be used for many things. In this case, I'm going to use it to find a fortress. If you press the number keys in a certain order when the pie chart is up, you can set it to a certain mode. This shows which block entities are currently rendered. Some example of blocks entities are shown here. Using this, we can know where the fortress is. This strategy helped me find so many fortresses. It seemed as though every time I would venture into the Nether, I would find one. Compared to when I first started, a fortress would have to generate near spawn for me to even come across it. With the pie chart strategy, I could find one far away. When I used /locate, the fortress would be hundreds of blocks away. I then found out that the locate command is actually broken and only works if you are in the ++ quadrant. With all these new discoveries, all that was left to do was to grind. July 31st. 20 days after I discovered the pie chart strategy, I was getting better at finding things in my seeds and getting lucky. All of the good seeds led to this. I collect all the resources I need from the village, then I search for some lava to enter the Nether. I spot a Nether fortress near spawn, and after I trade with the piglins, I head towards the fortress. My plan was to burn the wood that I placed down so I could get to safety where I was in a position to shoot the blazes. I collect my blaze rods and exit the Nether. Due to the lack of villagers, I had to find a new village. Because I was so far from spawn, the stronghold was quite close. With 2 dragon perches, I was back here again and I wanted redemption. This was my one chance. This was my moment. There I was, just seconds away from beating the game. As I faced the dragon, the pressure was overwhelming. I was just moments away from victory. The last time I was here, I failed because of one button. In order to progress in this challenge, you must learn from your mistakes. Ever since then, I was mad at myself for making that mistake. I couldn't let it happen again. It was just one more obstacle I had to overcome.
Race is a race. Shift, 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 shift. Do not unshift. Do not unshift. Do not unshift. Until after roar. Until after roar.
The thing is, some stories end badly, but not this one. After half the year of trying, I finally did it. I finally completed my goal of beating Minecraft Damageless. It took me about 1,500 attempts and several hundred hours. What I should have done is more research at the start, which would have saved myself a lot of time and effort. This was far more difficult than I anticipated. There were times where I wanted to quit and just forget about it, but I persisted. It felt like I was trapped chasing an impossible goal beyond my reach. But now that I'm here, I'm finally free.
Is this real?
See the player you mean? Yes, take care. It has reached a higher level now. It can read your thoughts. That doesn't matter. Thanks for a part of the game. I like this player. It's reading our thoughts as they go over the screen. That's how it chooses to imagine many things when you stay on the track of the game. Words make it easy. Finally finished that video, but it feels like something's missing. Wait. The shield! The shield is one of the most valuable items in Minecraft combat. It blocks most projectiles and is crafted by 1 iron and 6 planks. It is by far one of the most broken items in combat. Oh yeah, I didn't really use it. The only times where you would really need to use a shield are in caves, the nether, the blaze fight, and in the stronghold. If you avoid all caves, and run away or tower from all the mobs in the nether, you don't have to use your shield. In the blaze fight, you mostly use the blocks to protect you, since the shield is not as reliable. Now, we're left with just the stronghold. In the stronghold, there's a very strong chance that you run into a mob at some point. If this mob happens to be a spider, creeper, or zombie, although it's risky, you can still beat it without a shield. However, if you run into a skeleton and try to fight it without a shield, it's game over. If you get a really lucky stronghold, then it is possible to not use a shield. After I saw a few videos about beating the game hitless, I thought it was cool, but I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. The difference between a hitless run and a damageless run is you can't use potions and shields in hitless. I wanted to try to beat the game without getting hit, but I knew that it was an unrealistic goal and I wanted to focus on one thing at a time. On my final attempt, it just so happened that I got lucky. First, let's start off with the overworld. If you see the shield's durability go down, a green bar will pop up, meaning I used it. The overworld was pretty standard. I avoided all caves and got to the nether. I did run into a piglin and a ghast, but the ghast quickly despawned, and I had a gold helmet for the piglins. The shield doesn't really work well against fireballs anyways. The blaze fight was pretty standard. I only really used the shield for that in early attempts. I ran out of the nether and grinded for some wood. I eventually ended up at the stronghold. At the time, I wasn't really thinking about not using my shield. I ran into a few zombies and silverfish, but I avoided them and made it into the portal room. There isn't really a time where you would use the shield in the end, so that's how I beat the game hitless. Final attempt took me an hour and 30 minutes, and it was all luck, but I'll take it. With all the loose ends tied, that's about all I have to say. During this challenge, I've overcome many obstacles, and through my own skill and determination, I was successful. Since I first started, I have not only gained knowledge, but also skill about the game. The one thing I have learned is that thank you so much for watching this video and making it this far. Thank you to some of these people for helping me out with the editing and stuff. It's been Peaky, and I'm out. Peace.